Guys, welcome to a classic movie review of 1985's Return to Oz. Perhaps one of the most disturbing family movies ever made. A mind-boggling left turn of a sequel to one of cinema's greatest Technicolor marvels. This stars Fairuza Balk, Nicol Williamson and Jean Marsh, and it's the only feature film to be directed by acclaimed film and sound editor Walter Murch. This is, of course, the unofficial sequel to the 1939 classic The Wizard of Oz. And as zany as it is actually based loosely on Frank L. Baum's second and third Oz books, The Land of Oz and Ozma of Oz. Now, that light-hearted musical tone of the original film is a distant memory here, replaced with something much darker, an eerie and unsettling vision of Oz. Now, this was completely dismissed in 1985 for wandering so far away from Judy Garland's Yellow Brick Road adventures, but Return to Oz has since gained a cult following for its quirky and quite brave approach. Make no mistake though, this is a PG family film, but it's also a psychological horror that's about as dark fantasy gets. Let's take a look.
Are you sure you didn't come back for these?
My ruby slipper!
No. My ruby slippers.
So, Return to Oz is a bizarre cult classic to be sure, but on a personal level, for me, it's one of those movies that I watched very young and it had a profound effect on me, which is a way of saying that it scared the poop out of me. In a few ways, it still does. Now, 1939's Wizard of Oz is, of course, not without its moments of darkness. Homes being ripped up by tornadoes, scarecrows on fire, melting witches, etc. But 46 years later, Walter Murch delivered such a departure from that world that audiences just weren't ready. Now, the story does pick up with Dorothy Gale, this time played by Fairuza Balk, who is now several years older and is suffering from the trauma and confusion due to that infamous destruction of her house in Kansas, but also the strange experiences that she endured in the Land of Oz. Now, after suffering from repeated nightmares and hallucinations of Oz, Dorothy's aunt and uncle do the responsible thing and, of course, throw her into a psychiatric institution where she is treated with dubious methods of electroshock therapy. Now, this wouldn't be an Oz tale without a violent storm, and so one arrives to cut the power just in time to allow Dorothy to escape, and she gets swept away in a violent river and arrives once again in the Land of Oz. However, the Oz that she returns to is not the vibrant, whimsical place that both she and us, the audience, remembers from her first adventure. Here we find an emerald city that's in ruins, like some post-apocalyptic landscape. The Yellow Brick Road is just debris, and the population seemingly transformed into stone statues. It turns out that the evil Nome King, played by Nicol Williamson, along with the wicked Princess Mombi, played by Jean Marsh, have taken over Oz, and so instead of dancing up the road to see the wizard, this time Dorothy, with the help of her new companions, a talking chicken named Bellina, a loyal robot named TikTok, a flying moose head named Gump, and Jack Pumpkinhead, must rescue and restore the people and the Land of Oz. So Return to Oz is not only darker in terms of its story, but also in its general look. The costumes are more grotesque and the special effects are often bizarre and quite nightmarish. No more so in the head-swapping villain Mombi, who we'll get to in a second. But first, I need to mention the Wheelers.
Come here, chicken!
Now, these guys terrified me as a kid. Their early appearance in the film preceded only by the sound of their wheeled feet echoing across the ruins and going on to them cornering Dorothy down a dark alley, which is as grim and anxiety-inducing as it sounds. The maniacal 80s punk nightmares on wheels, and in a way, this film's version of the Flying Monkeys from the original. Now, Jean Marsh's Mombi here makes the Wicked Witch of the West look quite tame. She has a room in her castle where she stores the heads of her victims. Yeah, this is a kid's film, that she uses to swap between in some still quite impressive visual effects. Now, it's quite a tragic and chilling sight seeing all these heads on display, and a scene where Dorothy must steal a portion as the heads sleep is as tense as anything in 80s cinema.
Dorothy Gale.
Now, I'll talk more about the outright horrors of Return to Oz in a moment or two, but I could possibly go on and on. But we also need to mention the cast. So like I said, here we have Dorothy played by Fairuza Balk in her movie debut. And although not quite as iconic as Judy Garland, she's great here. She's not tasked with being the bubbly, innocent figure from the 39 film. Here her character is a little bit older and ready to confront the realities of the land that she once thought was safe and full of happiness. Her performance here lives up to and reflects the film's shift in tone. Even though she has some newfound pals, Balk still gives off this air of loneliness and fear, but she's also kick-ass when she needs to be. Now, she would go on to star in movies such as The Craft in '96, American History X, and Almost Famous, and she starred as Mildred Hubble also in the 1986 TV movie of The Worst Witch. Now, the main villain of the movie, really, despite not arriving on screen in full form until the final act, is the Nome King, played by Nicol Williamson for the most part, but also some cool practical stop-motion animation, and the visual effects of Return to Oz are one of my favourite elements of the whole movie, whether it's the mechanical design of TikTok, the disembodied heads of the Princess Mombi, or that intricate stop-motion animation for the Nome King's transformation. The visual effects here have that great 1980s feel to them, and for the time they were pretty groundbreaking and are still equal parts otherworldly and ominous, all helped of course by the film's cinematography by Alan Hume, and in the set designs. It all comes together to give you a feeling of decay and decline in Oz. So familiar are we with the glittering fantasy of the 39 film that when you see this future Oz, all overcast skies and decaying ruins, it's quite sad. So The Wizard of Oz, which was fundamentally a coming-of-age story about overcoming personal insecurities and the importance of friendship, and realising that everything you need is already there at home, etc, etc. And so when Return to Oz was released, it was met with a fair bit of confusion and dismay from audiences who expected a lighter, more family-friendly film, and not one that dealt with the existential aspect of growth, dealing with loss and overcoming childhood and adult fears. Its dark tone and unsettling visuals, I think, was a shock to viewers, this one included. It's certainly one of the gutsiest sequels that I can think of, even from an era when family entertainment wasn't afraid to be dark and dangerous. This one, more than most, I think, feels unapologetic in its commitment to blending horror, fantasy, and psychological drama. And to be fair, that more than likely contributed to it not having been the blockbuster success that its predecessor was, but I think this has only served to solidify its cult status. Now, the film's director, Walter Murch, ultimately didn't benefit. This was his first and last foray into feature film directing, as he took the film's failure pretty hard. So yeah, if you've yet to see this, then I think you're in for a bit of a treat, especially if you hold The Wizard of Oz in high regard. This will probably test you. I'd love to say that it's grown into a beloved cult classic, but I still think there's many a viewer who finds it difficult to like. For me though, it remains a great entry in that 1980s, not very family-friendly genre. The whole thing is brimming with dark ideas, crazy and scary designs, outlandish performances, and certainly not what Judy Garland told us was over the rainbow. Go check it out.
I forgive Mombi. Dorothy has punished her by removing her magical powers. And a witch with no magic is a miserable creature indeed.
And that's a fact.